From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Sonia Gray. Social movements across Brazil are protesting President Michel Temer's pension reform bill. Demonstrators blocked one of the main access routes to Sao Paulo, the Avenida Dutra. They are also condemning Temer's decision to put the army in charge of security in the state of Rio de Janeiro. They say this is a smokescreen to mask his difficulty in getting the bill passed in Congress.
We understand that this whole project of attacking workers and people on low incomes is connected to the military intervention. It's part of an overall strategy in Rio and in the other 8 cities where they are going to intervene to enable to get all their measure passed in the Senate without people being able to do anything about it.
Our correspondent Ignacio Limas has the latest from Sao Paulo.
We're standing in the middle of one of the main access routes to the city of Sao Paulo. People are here to defend the pension system and to stop the reform proposed by President Michel Temer, which goes to a vote in Congress. The reform focuses on increasing the contributions from 25 years to 40, so that Brazilians can access their pensions. In certain areas, in the outskirts of Sao Paulo, the life expectancy does not surpass 65 years. For this reason, people believe they will die before they can retire. Demonstrations are happening in different parts of Brazil. They are also protesting the military intervention in Rio de Janeiro, a decree pushed by Temer as well. People think the move can criminalize the youth and black community living in the favela. We will keep you updated as the protests unfold.
In Colombia, the Supreme Court has announced it will investigate former Colombian President Álvaro Uribe following the release of recordings in which he allegedly attempted to influence witnesses. The court highlighted a complaint filed by Uribe against longtime rival Ivan Cepeda, who Uribe claims brought witnesses to testify against him, regarding his alleged ties to paramilitary groups. For more, here's our correspondent in Bogotá, Lorena Hoyos.
There have been several reactions in the country after the Supreme Court's decision to close the investigation that was being carried out against Senator Ivan Cepeda. The court also found him innocent for past accusations that had been made by former President Álvaro Uribe. Uribe claimed Cepeda was part of a fake witness cartel. The court went even further and decided to start an investigation specifically directed towards legally intercepting calls, but without letting parties know. Once it was able to analyze the information it gathered in those investigations, it established that it is necessary to now investigate former President Álvaro Uribe directly because of his links with fake news witnesses. They also pointed out that his actions could be tied to other open cases against him, such as the accusations against Uribe for links with killings of El Aro or the formation of a squad. Different sectors have celebrated that justice has been served for Senator Cepeda, but now they are also asking that the investigations against Uribe move forward. They're recalling that in the Representatives' Chamber Accusation Commission, there are around 180 folders with petitions to investigate Uribe's links to the formation of paramilitary groups, the Aro killing, and others, all investigations which have not yet been moved forward.
We thank Lorena Hoyos for that report. Negotiators from Colombia's ELN guerrilla group are returning to Ecuador with the aim of restarting peace talks with the Colombian government. The National Liberation Party tweeted, the ELN delegates who were holding consultations will return to Quito to resume the 5th round of talks. And in Colombia, on the coast of San Juan, communities of Afro-descendants say they are persecuted by the state. People in this region want the war to end and for peace to turn into opportunities. Lorena Hoyos presents the 3rd part of this Choco special.
Next to the San Juan River lives a community of Afro-descendant Consejo Comunitario de Copoma, a town that has resisted war for decades. People from this place remember how they've suffered being in the crossfire between Colombian government and rebel groups at different times. They remember the bullets and disgrace dominating life and the will to survive overcoming fear.
Some women were sweeping the shrimp, and they made them jump into the water. They shot while my nephew was there. He was called Eduardo. He didn't have time to save the woman. He just lay down and waited for death to come.
Not so long ago, the community thought that the war was over. With the peace process, FARC joined the bilateral ceasefire between ELN and Colombian state. People didn't feel violence for a while. Nonetheless, in January, things changed. Suddenly, while people were sleeping, military forces bombarded the indigenous neighbor community.
We hope to not have wars in our future and our children's. We wish to have a good life, good politics, and supplies for life. Because nowadays, people don't have that. They keep starving. And when we see shootings, we don't want to go to the mountains. So we sit here and starve.
Just like the Wunan, the Afro-descendant people locked in their homes. Hunting, fishing, and farming is disappeared from town life. During this time, the community should be growing pan coger, but since the bombing, nobody dares to return to the Tordo River. People stack their last rice grains, knowing that soon they will have to make some tough decisions.
We are very hungry because we are scared to go out over there. We have our own plants, our fish, our animals. But we are afraid because we don't know if this will continue or if we will die because of this.
After the bombing, degradation and persecution against civil population increased. For youngsters from the community council were detained by military forces, accused of being ELN members. The community defended them and made clear that people from the surrounding areas are just trying to escape war. Only 2 out of the 4 detained were set free. John and Rainera tell us that day they were walking on the hills when they were captured.
They took us to the place they bombed. They made us sleep on the ground. Didn't give us food the whole day. They took pictures of us and made us sign some papers.
We don't owe anything to anybody and we still have fear. We have never done that, sleeping in a mountain and things like that. Capture without a reason, it is scary.
Sailing through the river, they are stopped and questioned about the whereabouts of ELN rebels, a reality repeated in many other regions of the country. Communities still deal with the aftermath of warfare and degradation from the Colombian state.
If we want to go down to the Gordo, we have to be careful. We're scared. Every day they take everything we bring back from us. My wife bought some dishes from Cali. She's bringing them back here, and they broke all of them. That keeps us afraid.
The young ones risk their future and lives. If they could, they shoot in soccer goals, not hiding from bullets. That dream looks distant. This is inner Colombia's reality. They don't give up on their dreams, but are condemned to a life of injustice and violence.
Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has made a call for peace and unity among Venezuelans in an unusual way. The president had promised a surprise on Sunday night. It turned out to be a recorded message in sign language by Maduro and members of his cabinet, in which they asked people to join them in building a country of respect and humility. Maduro shared the video on Twitter and said, "Together, Venezuela can be for all." Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza has responded to the Lima Group's refusal to invite President Nicolas Maduro to the Summit of the Americas in April. Arreaza shared an official statement which says the action places the Peruvian government outside of the law and runs against the spirit of the summit, which is to foster integration. The Lima Group is a grouping of Latin American countries, including Peru, Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico, which failed to get measures against Venezuela adopted by the OAS. Arreaza has also met his Nigerian counterpart, Geoffrey Onyeama, as part of his dignity tour. He tweeted that several bilateral agreements were signed during their meeting in the capital of Abuja. The Foreign Ministry said Nigeria's foreign minister had expressed solidarity with Venezuela in the face of sanctions and called on the countries responsible to adopt a constructive attitude towards Venezuela. And in Venezuela, the Popular Will Party has announced it will not be nominating a candidate for the upcoming presidential election, alleging that the election would be fraudulent. Our correspondent Freddie Gillingham has more from Caracas.
So just to bring you the latest updates regarding Venezuela's presidential election news, at the end of last week, one of the leading Venezuelan opposition parties, the Popular Will Party, declared that they will not be endorsing or nominating a candidate for that vote on April 22nd. This was on grounds that the election will be fraudulent. This opposition party is of course part of the leading MUD coalition. They have yet to decide on a single candidate to put forward. The fact that the Popular Will have pulled out, this will of course not only encourage abstention, but it will also lessen the chances of a single candidate being put forward. If multiple candidates are put forward as a result to a fractured opposition, this will only play into the hands of Maduro, who is looking stronger than ever, being the single candidate on the government side. Just on the grounds of fraud, this is of course being amplified by the international media and also by the opposition before anything has even taken shape. We can confirm that the Foreign Minister of Venezuela last week did declare that international and regional observers have been and will be invited to observe that election on April 22nd in less than 3 months' time.
Thank you, Freddie, for that report. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. The main parties in Mexico's July 1st presidential election officially nominated their candidates on Sunday. All three frontrunners are trying to sell a message of change and the fight against crime and corruption.
Andrés Manuel López Obrador has been confirmed as a candidate of the Morena party. The two-time presidential runner-up says he wants to end corruption while standing against the construction of the wall on the Mexico-United States border.
I am stubborn. Public opinion has it. Foolish, they say. Stupid, perseverant, or as it is usually called, those who defend ideals, principles, or some cause. It is with the same conviction that I will act as President of the Republic, with stubbornness, with foolishness, with perseverance, bordering on madness. going to put an end to corruption.
Also from Morena, elected to run for Senator Guerrero, is Nestora Salgado, a dual U.S.-Mexico citizen who was arrested in August 2013 and spent more than 2 years in jail for her activism and the organization of autonomous citizen police forces in the state of Guerrero. Running second in the polls is Ricardo Anaya of the Conservative National Action Party, the PAN, leader of a right-left coalition. A youthful ex-lawmaker whose bid to campaign as a fresh face has been marred by allegations of corruption and strong-arming his way to his party's nomination.
My hand will not shake when it comes to ending with the pact of impunity, nor am I going to be afraid about organized crime. I will face it with all the necessary intelligence and with all the required courage.
Running third is Mexico's former finance minister, Jose Antonio Meade, the official presidential candidate of the Institutional Revolutionary Party, a long dominant force in Mexican politics whose popularity is now so low it tapped a non-party member to be its presidential candidate for the first time in its history.
What do people ask of us? They're asking us to take away guns, money, and property from criminals and those who are corrupt. That's exactly what we're going to do.
Officially, the campaign does not open until March 30th.
In Brazil, 18 hostages held during a riot inside the Milton Dias Moreira prison in Rio de Janeiro have been released. The number of dead and injured are not yet known. SWAT units and the police are trying to keep the situation under control. The prison has the capacity to hold 885 inmates, but has a population of over 2,000. Also in Brazil, at least 154 people have died from yellow fever, according to a government report. The Ministry of Health reported that there were 464 cases of yellow fever, 154 of them fatal. Since July 2017, Brazilian health authorities say they were notified of at least 600 suspicious cases, the majority of them in the southern regions. They've also said that the vaccination campaign promised by the government is insufficient to meet the people in the most affected areas. And social movements gathered outside of the Jail 4 in Quito at the weekend. They're demanding freedom from Ecuador's jailed former President Jorge Glass. Our correspondent Denise Herrera reports.
National and international organizations which support Ecuador's former Vice President Jorge Glass gather outside Jail 4 in Quito. They believe that Jorge Glass should be released. They say the Vice President's detention is political persecution.
We are protesting against the unfair detention of our Vice President, Jorge Glass, who was legally elected by the people.
Glass's followers gather every weekend outside the jail to support the former Vice President. They promise to continue until Jorge Glass is granted freedom by the government.
We are organized in all parts of the world. We are with him. The Vice President understands that we are not going to leave him. We're going to get him out. We are going to stay and fight.
Jorge Glass's wife, Cynthia Diaz, is always at the head of the demonstrations.
This is an atrocity. They have put an innocent person in jail. He has always been a good worker and who has fought for his country. He has sacrificed his family, his children. He has sacrificed everything.
Last week, a public prosecutor decided not to charge the main witness in the case against Glass, Carlos Pareja Yanuceli. The demonstrators have condemned this decision and say their campaign for Glass goes on. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Quito.
In Argentina, social movements and sugarcane workers are protesting austerity policies implemented by President Mauricio Macri. They are demanding Macri end layoffs in the public sector and annul pension reforms approved last December. Demonstrators also oppose Macri's proposed labor reforms. They say the reforms will destroy workers' rights by making it easier for companies to fire workers.
We want to give a message to our people. We don't want more layoffs. We want to stop the crisis. Everything the government is doing is benefiting large corporate groups. They want the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer.
The key witness in a case of sexual abuse by the Chilean clergy has testified before a Vatican investigation in New York City. The survivor, Juan Carlos Cruz, arrived to give his evidence before Archbishop Charles Cicluna. Cicluna was appointed by the Pope Pope Francis to look into the accusations against Bishop Juan Barrios, who's accused of covering up sexual assault against minors. On a trip to Chile in January, Pope Francis caused controversy when he said he was sure that Barrios was innocent.
I did talk about the outcome. I said that it was enough of saying sorry and speaking to survivors and doing it as one-offs here and there around the world when their cases reach media attention. This should be a policy that every survivor in the world should be heard with respect and should receive the treatment that I received here today. The Pope needs to understand that that is what survivors need, that cases don't have to come to the media for them to pay attention to.
Time now for another short break. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
Ilang daw mo pat yun. Kusilo na mo bisong. Ilang daw mo pat yun. Kusilo na mo bisong.
Sometimes these feminists are really a bit OA, though. I mean, that's funny. Come on, just laugh.
I think it's hilarious.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at some stories making headlines around the world.
Militias allied to the Syrian government will enter the Afrin region, according to Syrian media. A Kurdish official said the deal had been struck with the Syrian army to help Kurdish forces end a Turkish offensive. Turkey said it would welcome any move by Damascus into Afrin to get rid of the YPG Kurdish militia. But if Syrian troops were entering to protect the Kurdish fighters, then the Turkish assault would go on. Libya has deported 250 migrants to Niger via voluntary deportation program. The program sends illegal migrants stuck in Libya on a one-way flight back home. 150 of the migrants being deported had been living and working in Misrata since arriving in the North African country, but had requested to be sent back to Niger. The remaining 100 migrants had been held at a detention center in Misrata and were given a new set of clothes as well as food and drink before arriving at the airport. Olympic athletes and Russians alike are scratching their heads asking why the Russian mixed doubles curling team at the Winter Olympics would use performance-enhancing drugs. Alexander Kruchelinsky and his wife Anastasia Briskalova won bronze but are now suspected of having tested positive for meldonium, a banned substance that increases blood flow and improves exercise capacity. Russia has been accused of running a state-backed systematic doping program for years. The International Olympic Committee says they're looking into the allegations, while the Kremlin says it's too early to comment.
That could be because the athlete or his coach were being silly, or it was provoked by someone, or it was a mistake by those who checked the test. There could be many scenarios.
It's horrible. What else can I say? It's a disgrace for Russia. What should I say? It's very disappointing and unpleasant. We relied on them after all. We cheered for them, and they failed us. It is horrible and hurtful.
A plane crash in central Iran on Sunday killed 65 people. The twin-engine turboprop ATR-72 crashed into a mountain after takeoff. Heavy fog and the age of the aircraft are being blamed for the accident. Helicopters, mountain rescue personnel, the Red Crescent, as well as local volunteers were involved in the search for the wreckage.
And in Israel, researchers have ended an exercise which simulates life on Mars. A team of 6 Israeli researchers built a mock-up in Israel's Negev desert. The desert resembles the Martian environment's geology, aridity, appearance, and desolation, according to Israel's Ministry of Science and Technology. The participants were investigating satellite communications, the psychological effects of isolation, radiation measurements, and searching for life signs in the soil. And that brings us to the end of this news brief. So for these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at tellusyourtv.net/English. Or you can join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Soini Gray. Thank you so much for watching.